Yeah, and a lot of people were. Some people thought the Roger segment was going to be no, they thought it was going to be an interview. Which, I mean, maybe the day will come someday when there's two people that make me nervous to talk to. Not nervous like shaky, I can't talk to them, but Ricky Johnson and Roger. Yeah.
And I don't know why Ricky Johnson would make
He asked me the same thing because I told him that one day that he makes me a little nervous. And he said, why? He's a really good public speaker.
Yeah.
And
so are you.
Yes, I do okay. There's something about Ricky Johnson that he is a bigger than life character to me. And I don't mean because he's 5'10" or whatever it is. It's 6 o'clock. Enough of my therapy session. And Ricky Johnson, I have to start the show. Okay. All right. Nice what?
Nice sticker. Decal. Nice decal.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about the decals and all that stuff, and so much more coming up.
I'm Jerry Maddox.
And I'm Ryder Maddox in sunny California.
And you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A, hosted by Joe Abbate.
I'm running a little behind here on my opening. Sorry, folks. I didn't have any audio. Here we go. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. I am your host, Joe Abbate. Thank you for joining me. Along with me tonight is my beautiful wife of 36 years, Susie Baby. Susie, you can have a nice giveaway a little bit later. Don't say what it is just yet, but do you know what it is?
I do.
All right. As long as you know what it is, we will take it from there. As you have read about the past day or so, we will have a pre-recorded segment with Roger DeCoster here on the show a little bit later on. We've also got some great stuff from Jerry Maddox, Mid-Ohio's Vintage Motocross Day last week, and so much more. In the meantime, as always, I want to thank our sponsors, Motion Pro, Vinco, Preston Petty Products, ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com, Racer X, George Ackerman and the Moto Barn, the International Motocross Museum, Full Circle Racing, and of course, Mike Chamberlain. As always, we've got our other supporters on the show that have been so generous to us, including Al Roof, Fred Hudgens from Derf's, and FastGuyStuff.com, and all you folks at home who've been really, really gracious to us by sending us your donations through PayPal. We do have a link for that. And we've also got a QR code, which you can scan. And here it is right here, isn't it?
There it is.
Is it there?
Yeah.
There it is. You can scan that QR code and make a donation just like that. Don't forget, Vintage Motocross Q&A sponsorship opportunities are available. You can get on the board back here, just like you see all of our sponsors who have helped us out over the years. I want you to keep sharing the show, whether you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube. Be sure to share the show. Comment where you're watching the show from, maybe what some of your favorite segments have been over the years, and just some general information. Tell me what you think about what's happening here, how we're doing, if you've dealt with our sponsors, and great stuff like that. Susie,
Yes.
what are we giving away tonight?
We are giving a poster courtesy of the IMM.
The IMM is the
International Motocross Museum.
Okay, thank you very much. And when you do pick someone who does that, how do you know, what do they do after that?
Well, they log on to the IMM, I think it's .org.
Internationalmotocrossmuseum.org.
And they will pick a poster of their choice
Mhm.
and then let us know, and we'll get it shipped out.
And their address too.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but you'll be telling us who that is a little bit later on in the show, correct?
Yes.
All right, that's wonderful. So let's get back to what we're doing here. We have the Next Time Try This segment, always brought to you by the great people at Vinco. Keep the ride going, vinco.com. Let's get a look at this. Next time, try this segment. I want to talk to you about the fork caps on your bike. On the left, we have a beautiful NOS cap. As you can see, it's in excellent condition. On the right, we've got a cap that's seen better days. Throughout time, with the wrong wrench or maybe even an adjustable wrench, someone has really done some damage to this little fork cap. But if it's for a race bike, I want to show you a rather simple way that you can get it cleaned up and make it look a whole lot better. First thing we're going to do is take out that valve that someone has put in. So let's get a closer look at that, and then I'll move on and show you how to freshen up that cap. My vise happens to have a set of jaws on the bottom that are cut out on a little bit of an angle. We'll be able to hold that fork cap on there a lot better than the regular jaws on the other end. I've also triple wrapped the threads on that fork cap with some duct tape just to give it some added protection. It's very, very important that when you're working on something like this, obviously you don't want to ruin the threads, but you need a good, secure way to hold the cap in some way so that you can actually file it, sand it, or do whatever you're going to have to do to make it look nice again. Now I've got 3 different files that I'll be using here. I don't know which one I'm going to be using first. Depends on how the aluminum reacts to the file that I'm going to be putting on it. This one happens to have a little bit of a large nick right here, so I think I am going to use the coarsest file, the bastard file, just to get that down a little bit. This cap is also, I guess you would call it, convexed over the top. It is curved, so you do want to keep that in mind, that you don't want to make it flat. You want to try and keep the contour of it. And yes, I did take out that little Schrader valve that was on it originally. So let's take a couple of passes with this file and get this big gouge here down first and see how that goes. You want to take your time. You could always go back and take off a little more. You don't want to take off too much material at once. Okay, we've got that big one down, and this one over here, yeah, looks like it's sticking up pretty high too, so I'm going to continue on with the coarser file on this one. Now, I've got those 2 higher spots down. I'm going to go down to the next finest file, and I'm going to continue on around. It is curved over the top. It is convexed, so we're going to try and keep that shape as much as we can. I think we've got the top looking pretty good with just the files. I'm also going to be using some 220 grit and 320 grit sandpaper. We're going to start off with the 220. And the same way when I sand gas tanks or anything else, I always try and keep the sandpaper in the palm of my hand. Or sometimes you need to use just your thumb, like in a situation like this. All right, we're looking pretty good with the top of that cap. Now, I'm going to change the angle of the camera, and we're going to be taking a look at some of the damage that's been done to the flat sides of the top of this cap, and I'll show you how to make those look a little bit better too. You're going to be careful when you file. You're only going to make it so nice. You don't want to take it down too far, just enough to kind of get it cleaned up. For this one, we're going to use our the fine file. So we're going to start by going across this flat section and try and stay away from the flange with this edge of the file. This edge of the file you don't want biting into that flange, otherwise you're going to cause more damage. So try and keep it away from there. Keep it flat as you can with the contour, with the edge of the nut. Go one way nice and easy with your file. And it's making it look a little bit more respectable now. We're going to flip that cap over in the vise in just a second, and we'll get it going this way too. Now, it may not be perfect when you're done, but it'll be better, it'll look better, and at least you'll have somewhat of a square edge on where your socket will still be able to grab that cap properly. It's looking a lot better. Yeah, you do have a couple little nicks in there. I'm going to work on that with some sandpaper, get that flange cleaned up, and then we're going to polish it up. Well, there you have it. After a little polishing, it looks pretty good. Of course, the filing, the sanding, all of it helped to get it to where it's a whole lot better than what it was. And just for a little comparison, this is the one from the other side. And it is a 22 millimeter cap. And if you use the right socket to put it back on, well, there isn't much play in there at all. And I think you'd be hitting on the majority of all those high points of the top of that fork cap. So next time, try that.
Hey, I'm Brad Lackey, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. Be right back.
Vinco, who already has a full line of vintage parts, now has air shocks that are an exact duplicate of the original air shocks so popular in the late 70s. So whether you're looking to build a full racer or museum showpiece, these shocks will give you that incredible 70s look and improve your bike's performance. These new air shocks are fully rebuildable with Vinco rebuild kits, and all shocks are hand assembled in the USA with all new components. Every component is brand new. Just like the originals, our air shocks are adjustable with 2 chambers, high and low pressure, giving you tremendous flexibility for settings of your bike suspension. The Vinco air shocks come fully assembled and ready for installation. Just add air or nitrogen. The kits include the manual and spacers. Visit Vinco.com to check out the air shocks and all that Vinco has to offer to help you get back on track and to keep that ride going.
Vinco's got a special going on right now. They've got top end kits for that Yamaha lightweight 250 Street Ripper, the 73 through 75 RD 250. Top end kits for that bike available at Vinco right now. Let's not forget, we've got the, no, not this one. I just showed you this one, right? Okay. Here's what we got. We got the 74 through 76 Yamaha GT80, the Mini Enduro, and the 80 through 82 MX80. They got all that happening over at Vinco. They've got a top end kit and a rod kit for just about every vintage motocross bike you can imagine. Also, a great thing about Vinco right now, if you spend $200 or more, you will get free priority shipping. That's free priority shipping at Vinco.com. Keep the ride going. The What's It Worth segment is brought to you by Full Circle Racing. Thank you, Tom McAllister. Get over to FullCircleRacing.com. This is the segment of the show, What's It Worth, where I read to you a little bit about a bike. We show you some pictures, and whoever gets closest sometimes gets a prize. This week, I've got something special for you. We've got new vintage motocross Q&A stickers. These are really nice. About 5 inches long, about 2 inches high, beautiful, laminated. They won't come off when you get them all dirty on your bike or wherever you're going to keep them. Guess the exact price on this bike, and we'll get you 2 of those in the mail. Okay, here we go. What's it worth? It's a 1975 Husqvarna 400WR. It was refurbished in 2022 prior to being acquired by the seller in 2023. It has remained on static display since that time. Work during the refurbishment is said to have included overhauling the 396cc 2-stroke single, refinishing the bodywork and the frame. The equipment includes a 6-speed transmission, yellow number plates, a cross-braced handlebar, dual chrome shocks, which I don't know if they're correct or not. Maybe somebody could comment on that. Anyway, it's got a high mount exhaust system and a black vinyl solo seat. This 400WR is now offered at no reserve in California for off-road use only. It is only on a bill of sale. The black finish 396 piston port 2-stroke single was rated at 40 horsepower when new. It was overhauled in 2022, as we mentioned a little bit earlier. All the bearings were replaced, the seals, the top end was rebuilt. Everything was brandy spanking new, and they put in a new electronic ignition system. The seller said that there is one dent in the black high pipe. Other than that, the bike appears to be in beautiful condition. And I don't know how much you could see on the screen here, but I did take a very, very close look at it before choosing it for this week's What's It Worth? And it looked like it was really nice. The hardware was done on it, the black paint, all the paint on the tank, everything looked real, real nice. Now, this bike was sold on Bring a Trailer, and I'd like you to guess how much you think this bike recently sold for. You got to get it on the money or a little bit less. You get the stickers. $5,000, $6,000. This bike sold for $7,500 plus a 5% buyer's fee. So here's what I'll do. I mean, the price is $7,500, but you got to figure, well, another 10% would be $750, half of that, $340 about. I'll go with anything under $7,850. Anybody that's got a price under $7,850 or less will get the stickers. By the way, this bike sold on July 27th, 2024. Anybody?
Jeff Kokoski got it.
Jeff Kokoski.
And Tony Mosley.
Tony Mosley, yeah.
And let's see, 7,500 on the dot.
From Tony Mosley?
And Jeff Kokoski.
Well, Jeff Kokoski is kind of a,
Yeah, he got stuff today from us.
yeah, he did get some stuff. And he's sort of, you remember the old radio station? Anybody who works here or who is in,
He's subject to.
yeah, he's subject to that,
Right.
to not winning anything.
So he doesn't.
Tony Mosley, congratulations.
Right.
Send me your mailing address and I will get you, I'll get you something I'll get you those stickers like this, brand new, Vintage Motocross Q&A stickers, you know. I just don't have enough hands and legs to operate all the buttons and switches that it takes to run this show. Now,
I forgot to ask, there was a question from Brian Michael.
what was the question?
It was from your video. He wanted to know what type of compound do you use?
What kind of compound do I use?
Or what, yeah.
Brian, you know what I like to really use? It's called DuPont 7, DuPont number 7. And it comes in a liquid, and it also comes in a compound like you have in a little, like a little can. It comes like that, but it's called DuPont 7, and it comes in white, and it comes in red. The red is not like a very harsh buffing compound or polishing compound. It's a little smoother, works a little bit better. You hit it with the DuPont 7 red, and then you hit it with the DuPont 7 white or something similar to that, and you'll get a nice finish on all your painted stuff like that. Okay, we've got some really great video that was sent to us from Jerry Maddox. As you know, Jerry Maddox and Clunker have been out there chasing another ARMA title, and we do have a really great video from last week at Mid-Ohio. We're going to bring that to you right now. Compliments of Jerry Maddox. Let's get a look at this. I've been waiting, really waiting to show you guys this all day. Such a great little video that Jerry put together for us.
Hello everyone, here we are at the AMA Vintage Motorcycle Days 2024. I know down the road in Nashville, Tennessee area, they're having the Loretta Lynn's Amateur Nationals, and I know it's a major event. Little do they know, up the street in Mid-Ohio is an event going on that's equally as big, and it's amazing. Just in a few minutes, I'm going to show you what's going on here. In the meantime, just take a look around. I want you to see this. Off in the distance, what we're looking at is the motocross parking and camping for the motocross event. That is just a tiny portion of how big the AMA Vintage Days event is. And this is an event. It's not just a motocross race. It's also road racing. It's also hare scrambles. Back into those woods is where hare scrambles and trials is happening. But the main event of the Vintage Motorcycle Days might be what I call the largest flea market in vintage motorcycle history. It's called the Vintage Days Swap Meet, and it starts down in here and it continues on and on and on and on. It's just one of the biggest events you'll ever see. It's fun, it's crazy, and it's all legal. You've got kids, adults alike running everywhere on every kind of vintage bike, vintage vehicle, weirdo bikes, everything you could possibly stand here at Mid-Ohio. I'm going to give you a brief tour shortly of just some of the things that I saw earlier today and give you a little bit of description of each. Stay tuned. I'll be right back to the AMA Vintage Motorcycle Days 2024.
Everybody give it up. Let's see some rubber burning. He told me he's going to pop this tire, I'll tell you what.
I'm topping open.
Wilson with my friend Jerry Maddox, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A.
Hosted by Joe Abbate.
Hi, Joe.
I want to thank Jerry Maddox and Tommy Benolkin for jumping in there with us for a minute at Vintage Motocross Q&A. I've got more from Jerry Maddox a little bit later on in the show, but right now we're going to get on with our Here's the Problem segment. Here's the Problem segment is brought to you by Motion Pro. First question comes up from Grau Macau. Grau Macau wants to know, Joe, what are you guys doing for the first generation Yamaha monoshock rebuilds? I picked up a 1975 MX250. The shock itself, sealed, bladder, bumper, etc. What are you guys doing in order to rebuild that? If anybody doesn't know what the first generation monoshock looks like, or maybe you're just curious, it looks like this. This came out during your 75, late 75 season 250 400B models were a monoshock. And then right after that, the 125C, 250, and 400 with that first generation monoshock. It looked just that. Who's fixing these? Steve Sage at Sage Suspension. 303-425-6712. That's Steve Sage at Sage Suspension. He specifically says on his website that they work on the first generation monoshock. And I think I ought to give a little plug also to George Quay at proaction.com. George Quay at proaction.com. Neither of these guys are sponsors of the show, but I do know both of them, and they both do great work. So, all things being considered, I'll give either one of them a call for your first generation monoshock. Let's go to the next question here. It's just Keith, but Keith is a hockey ref. I don't know Keith's last name, but this is his email to me, Joe. Question is on plastic tank with my 78 RM100 and others. What is the best way to store with fuel, no fuel, etc., to avoid cracking, as I'm trying to preserve the original decals? Thank you, Keith. Yeah, Keith, I mean, this isn't a great picture, but here's a huge crack right here in this IT tank, and it can happen to any plastic tank over the years. And it can happen for a couple of different reasons. The person that I trust the most when it comes to plastic products is none other than Phil Cox from Plastic Renovation. So it was kind of late at night. I gave Phil a little bit of a shout, but over a text message. And here's what Phil had to say to us about trying to maintain what's going on with that plastic tank. Where is it here? Here we go. Phil says, to me, the best thing to do is empty the tank as the gas saturation discolors the plastic. Not only that, but fuel will add pressure to the tank, being its temperature sensitive. Clogged fuel caps, as I well know, will even expand the tank. It has to breathe. With fuel in that tank, will surely split due to the pressure buildup. And it says, once you empty the tank, according to Phil, it's a good idea to clean the residual fuel out of it with a bio degreaser. Something from Walmart called Super Clean is a great product. And I do agree with Phil on that. And maybe you've seen in the past where I am restoring Honda Elsinore tanks. And sometimes it looks like somebody put air in the tank. That's not always the problem when you see them expanded. You all have a lawnmower. What happens when you put your gasoline in that plastic jug? You leave it in your shed or you leave it outside. It expands, correct? So it happens on gas tanks too. But when it happens on the thicker tanks, like on your ITs, your plastic tanked RMs, or your Hondas, they will split open. So if you want to preserve it, get the fuel out of it, take the cap off, wash it out real well. And that's coming from a guy who does top shelf work when it comes to plastic. And that's Phil Cox. What do we got coming up next here? Mike Conley Sr., he's been sending me some curveballs the last couple of weeks. I will tell you. Which square barrel Mako clutch was the popular hot setup, the big clutch or the small clutch? Well, here's the big clutch, okay? And if you look at it, I'll show you the small clutch in a second, but if you look at it, it's quite a tall basket. As you know, the Mako has that Belleville washers that they use for a spring. And with it being that tall and those washers in there, in those bigger engines, it can get distorted. Here's a picture of a small clutch basket. Look how much more rigid this thing is. It doesn't have that higher profile. It also has a 2-row primary chain, not a 3-row chain as you would find on the 400s. Now, I talked to Gary Kortz about this, a very reliable Mako guy. Gary tells me that the small clutch started with the 5-speed bikes in 1975. That was on all the 250s. The big clutch was on the first generation, well, not the first generation motocrosser, but the 1968 big bore bikes. They were 4 speeds, they were open bikes. That big clutch basket would distort, okay, between the triple row chain, the big torque, the torque from that engine, you would have a lot of distortion in that basket, and the 3-row chain too. If I could explain it to you a little better for people that may not be that familiar with it, picture a cymbal, like on a drum set. You take a big cymbal and you can kind of bend it side to side, okay? You get a hi-hat cymbal, it's going to be a little tougher to bend. Therefore, Mako went with a smaller clutch. When people realized that they were able to change the big clutch to the smaller clutch, it was all the rage. So at about 1975, that's when people started taking the smaller clutches and putting them on the earlier bikes. And that included the 5-speed AWs and the Magnums, if they had a bigger clutch. But most of them came with a smaller clutch at that point. And there you have it. Mike Conley. There's the big clutch. One more good look at that. And another good look at the small clutch for der Mako. Motion Pro segment is brought to you, of course, by Motion Pro. There's 20% off everything at Motion Pro except custom-made cables. When you go there, buy whatever you need. At the end, type in the letters and numbers MP, as in Motion Pro, 9135. That's MP 9135, 20% off across the board. The more you spend, the more you save. Don't forget, Vintage Motocross Q&A t-shirts are available in all colors. Right now, they're ready to ship in gray, black, and white. They come in tees, they come in tanks, they come in every size and shape. And we were even making them with our logo across the back and with some of the manufacturer's logos across the front until we get a notification that says not to do that. Okay? Drop me a line. It's also, I have it on the page as well, how much the shirts are. They start at just $20.
And there's Suzuki too, which you don't.
Yeah, we've got one with Suzuki on it too. They start with just $20 and they go all the way up to like $50. It's like $5 to ship. It's a really good deal, and you get any shirt that you would like. Now, as I mentioned a little bit earlier in the show, International Motocross Museum have been working with us, and we have been working with them for a couple of years now as we get closer to the opening of the International Motocross Museum, which will be sometime next summer. A lot of people have weighed in while either at one of the events there or on camera at other places. One of the people who certainly wants to see the International Motocross Museum thrive is 5-time world champion Roger DeCoster. Why does he want to see it thrive? Roger's entire collection is in the hands of the International Motocross Museum. His display alone will be over 10,000 square feet. We were there at one of the events. Roger was there, and he had a little bit of something to say about the International Motocross Museum. So this is the moment you've been waiting for. Let's hear what the man has to say about the International Motocross Museum.
But the Motorcycle Museum, it's something that in the US we're missing. There is places that have bike collections and all that, but nobody has specialized, or nobody has the selection of real factory bikes that were ridden by the top riders as what Terry Good is putting together. And the most impressive thing is how passionate he has been about it. I mean, he has collected these bikes. I think he must have spent the last 20 years or more doing this, and spend a fortune on it, I'm sure. And to see his passion still today, after 2 years of being delayed and being challenged by the COVID situation, you know, it finally, he was able to pull it off. And it was really cool to see, I don't know, 400 or 500 enthusiasts following word by word, minute by minute, what was happening on the stage, even after we had been there for around the clock pretty much. And it was really cool, and it's something that in the future we can all be proud of it, and especially for Terry, it's like it became his mission for life, you know, and really cool. Yeah.
I want to thank Roger DeCoster for taking the time to talk to the cameraman there at Terry Goods when one of the events was going on a couple of years ago. We're going to take a little bit of a break, and we'll be right back with more Vintage Motocross.
I'm Brock Glover, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A, and we'll be right back.
Motocross struck America coming from Europe like a lightning bolt, striking the hearts and minds of people all across the country and the world. Battles of intense racing and cutting rivalries with loyalty to brands and heroes intensified as years of blood, sweat, and dirt flew through the minds of those memories of champions as they wrestled their machines through almost impossible tracks. But where are those past champions? And where are their bikes? Terry Good, an ex-pro motocross racer, has made it his life mission to honor these heroes and the bikes they rode to stardom. We raced, we rode, we lived and breathed motocross. Go back in time and relive those moments, now preserved for the first time ever in the world's first museum dedicated to the history of motocross. Our new building is in the gate. Help us get a great start and you can be part of history. Go to internationalmotocrossmuseum.org and become a part of our team.
The International Motocross Museum is a 501(c)(3) not-for-profit organization. Get over to their website, internationalmotocrossmuseum.org. Everything you purchase or donate is 100% tax deductible. Projected opening date, mid-2025. That's coming up next summer. As I mentioned just a moment ago, Roger certainly has a vested interest in seeing the museum open. If you saw the amount of stuff that Roger had saved over the years and is now in the possession of the International Motocross Museum, you wouldn't believe it. The building is 100,000 square feet. The DeCoster display alone will be 10% of that. It's absolutely incredible. I hope you can, everybody will be there eventually, I can assure you. The Moto Showcase brought to you by Preston Petty Products. Preston Petty Products, thank you, Paul Stannard, for keeping the legend alive. We've got a bike tonight that was sent to us by just a minute here, because I'm I see what I'm doing here. Okay, here's what we got, guys, okay? Preston Petty, a sponsor of the segments. He has all these beautiful plastic fenders, and the legend continues at Preston Petty Products. This is the Moto Showcase. Now, before I get into this, Paul has decided that he wanted to run another special this week, and it's kind of interesting what he has done. Paul writes to me, if at all possible, I'm offering a Preston Petty oval number plate online for Billy Burns. Billy Burns is a young man who is going to Italy for the USA Vintage Trophy Team. He and Fred Host and Mark Grossman. The cost to get there and send their bikes is tens of thousands of dollars. So if you want to buy a number plate to get these guys all the way to Camerino, Italy for the 50th anniversary of this race, go over to PrestonPettyProducts.com, buy an autographed plate like this, and it would really, really go toward a wonderful event and getting 3 guys over to Italy. In the meantime, Paul wants to also offer 3 number plates just like this for only $25, shipping included. The offer begins tonight and it ends on Saturday. Get over to PrestonPettyProducts.com. $25, shipping included. I've seen these things for sale on eBay for $25, $26, $28, plus shipping. Okay? Get over there, PrestonPettyProducts.com. Get them for $25, shipping included. Now, I can continue on with the Moto Showcase. Eddie Williams was nice enough to send us a bike in the past week or so. Eddie's got a nice 83 Honda here. Eddie is from Willis, Texas. And he writes to us, hopefully, you can use my latest restoration on the What's It Worth or Moto Showcase segment. This is an 82 Honda CR480. I restored it myself. The frame has been powder coated. The swing arm, the foot pegs, everything has been refinished. The rear shocks, the forks were rebuilt by a Honda mechanic. The carb is rebuilt by Sudco. All new plastic. It's got new Dunlop tires and tubes. It's even got new rim locks. Buchanan spokes, new gold wheels. Got powder-coated hubs, new sprockets, a new chain, and a new chain slider. Bike's looking really nice, Eddie Williams, I'll tell you that. It's also got internally all new bearings and seals, new gaskets, all new cables. It's got a Motion Pro throttle on there. It's got new perches. It's got new grips. It's got a new seat foam and cover. Most of all, the new fasteners, new brake shoes, and a PFR expansion chamber and aluminum silencer. Now, I'm going to say this, Ed. Everything you mentioned does look really nice on this bike, from the frame, from the hardware, certainly the wheels. I'm going to give you a little constructive criticism here, and I hope you don't mind. Paint the pipe, Ed. Paint the pipe black, get it over with. I know what you're trying to do here. It looks like it has the original clear on it from PFR. Get rid of it. Either sandblast it off, have it vapor blasted, and put a nice coat of satin black paint on there, and it'll look so much better. The other problem, of course, and look, it's not a big deal to correct. The rear fender is standing up a little bit too proud in the rear. Everything looks fine because the way it looks, the subframe is not bent, and I can tell by the way the seat is sitting that the subframe is not bent up and crushing the seat. I just think you need to remount that fender, bring it down a little bit so it's not sticking up so far, and you got yourself a real nice saleable bike there, because you did mention that the bike was for sale. I want to thank Eddie Williams for sending this bike in. Eddie, get me your address, and I will send you, I don't know, maybe I'll get you something from Preston Petty Products or some stickers or something good. I know you just bought a shirt, but you know what? That was before you sent the bike in. Okay?
And I sent some other goodies in there.
Oh, did you?
Well, you'll see when he gets it.
Sent him some other goodies as well.
I did.
You know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to take a little bit of a break. Then we are going to come back with the Did You Know segment from Jeff Kokoski. It's really good this week. It's on the Carlsbad racetrack and how that came about. We'll be right back. I've got something special I'm going to give you right now. We'll be back in just a minute.
Marty and Bob Hanna cutting a works frame in half and a production frame in half, and not telling engineering, not telling the factory, and putting it together and going and winning a national with it. These kind of things the current generation is not going to know, and the world needs to know this, because they look at motocross and supercross now, it's so glamorous, and they're superstars, and they're making millions of dollars, and they retire without a big injury or whatever, and they go on to do whatever the hell they want because they have the money to live that way. God bless them. I get that. But if you don't preserve, and the next generation doesn't appreciate and see and look at what we had to go through to get here, it's just going to be lost. And so what Terry's trying to put together with the millions of dollars that he's invested in bikes, in memorabilia, in just everything, just all of that needs to see.
I know. All right, we had a little technical problem there, I think, with the connection, but you got the gist of it. Another one of the legendary racers of our time, Ricky Johnson, talking about the International Motocross Museum. And I've got some other spots like this that will be showing some other legendary racers that we're talking about the International Motocross Museum on some of our future episodes. But right now, we want to get to the Jeff Kokoski segment that I talked to you about a little bit earlier. And Jeff's segment that he gives it to us every week, it's called Did You Know? Well, did you know about Carlsbad? It'd be hard to argue against the influence that racers from the San Diego County and nearby Los Angeles County had with the birth of American motocross in the late 60s through the mid-80s. Names like Smith and Croft, Tripes and Glover, Moats, Turner and Ward, Johnson and Lachine all hailed from San Diego County, while Jones, Hanna, Hart, Bell and Irested, Thorwaldsen and Lampu and O'Mara all hailed from the outskirts of Los Angeles County. All these men, as well as other Californians, helped the American motocross dream grow. The Southern Cal tracks, too, like Indian Dunes, Paris, and Saddleback, they all had something to do with the great time of American motocross. But arguably, one of the most famous tracks had to be Carlsbad Raceway. It was 1961, and a man who was a military pilot named Larry Geisner and his partner Sandy Ballin purchased the land that would become Carlsbad Raceway. At first, the pair opened up a drag strip in 1964 to people like Big Daddy Don Garlitz, the Mongoose and Snake teams. Remember them when they would drive their funny cars? Tom McEwen and Don Prudhomme. Even Evel Knievel spent some time there at Carlsbad in the early years. But by 68, motocross was becoming really, really popular in America. And a guy by the name of Stu Peters and Kelvin Franks talked Geisner into putting a motocross track onto the side of the hill there at Carlsbad. By the beginning of the 70s, so much was starting to happen, and the popularity was growing, and the demand for motocross just grew. The track was simply called The Rock at that time, and it was a very, very high-speed track with sweeping turns, and California just became infatuated with motocross. British motocross journalist and promoter Gavin Tripp and Bruce Cox were looking for a place to bring the 500cc GP. They thought the popularity of Carlsbad would be the place to have that. Billed as the Hang Ten United States Grand Prix, the first US GP was held there on June 24th, 1973. The hilly track was lined with long-haired guys, bikini-clad girls, and crazed motocross fans from all over Southern California. To add to the frenzy, ABC's Wide World of Sports would cover the event, and they would edit that. We wouldn't see that back east until probably late November, sometime into December. But the first race that ever happened there, it was Willie Bauer who won. He went 1-1 that day to take an overall ahead of Belgian Jacques van Veldhoven and Irishman John Banks on a 4-stroke BSA. Who was the first American? Bad Lackey. He took an 8th place overall that day on a Kawasaki. The following year, 1974, the Dutch dentist, you know him, Gerrit Wolsink, he was locked into a monumental battle with Huskies flying Finn Heikki Mikkola. The race came down to a spectacular finish at the end, and there you can see a very, very popular picture of Wolsink just getting across the finish line ahead of Mikkola. That win started Wolsink's 5-time win, and he became the undisputed mayor of Carlsbad. When asked by Ricky Johnson at Terry Good's second International Motocross Museum fundraiser why and how did he do so well on a hard-packed track when he was from the sandy side of the Netherlands, he said, I just stayed out of the blue groove. I don't know. Seems to be a little, making it sound a little too simple there for me. In 1980, European domination of motocross was coming to an end. It was a time for American racers to really, really start to shine at Carlsbad. That year, it was privateer Marty Moch riding a LOP, or LOP-backed Yamaha. He won both motos to shock everyone. By 83, Swedish racer Håkan Andersson would be the last of the non-Americans to win at Carlsbad. Sadly, the last 500 GP happened in 1986, and the man who we mentioned a few times here tonight on the show, Ricky Johnson, was the winner of that race. Ricky Johnson, the winner of the last 500 Grand Prix at Carlsbad. In 1986, the property was sold, and it was sold to some developers. Nothing really ever happened to it. The track began to run month to month as the people who owned the land began to lease it back to Geisner, and they would open up and they would have practice days there. With many of the cities and towns like San Diego, La Jolla, Encinitas were near Carlsbad. It had a big Spanish influence, but Carlsbad had a little bit of a different name, and we didn't quite know why. It's very, very interesting. In the 1880s, a former sailor named John Fraser, and I had his picture right up here. John Fraser dug a well at a train stop near Carlsbad. The naturally carbonated mineral water in the artesian well was so good that Fraser began to sell the water. The water was tested and was found to be chemically similar to the water found in some of the most renowned spas in Eastern Europe. The water was tested. It was found to be chemically similar to that, and this water was used in some of the most amazing spas around the world, including one called Karlsbad Spa in Czechoslovakia. Today, you can still buy the water from the Carlsbad Alkaline Water Company. And there you have it, Jeff. Another great story from Jeff Kokoski, and all about Carlsbad. And a friend of mine, John Taylor, worked day-to-day there at Carlsbad right up until it closed. Maybe we'll get John on the show one of these days. He's a little on the quiet side, but who knows? Maybe we can get John there. Anyway, now you know what it was like to be at Carlsbad throughout all those years, and the Geisner family, and all that happened there at Carlsbad. We are going to take another break. In fact, you know what? I'm not going to take a break. I am going to bring you the second part of the Jerry Maddox coverage from Mid-Ohio from last week. And then we'll be back with a little bit more of Vintage Motocross Q&A, and then we'll be wrapping it up after that, okay? Jerry Maddox, Ohio, video 2. Where am I? Oh, man. Jerry, what'd you do to me here? Here we go. Part 2, Jerry Maddox.
Welcome back. I know we're all motocrossers, but you really should take in some vintage road racing sometime. It's unreal how fast they are. The riding the bikes and the big barrel thingy, I had seen that at the circus a lot. But the national pit bike racing was off the charts too. You know, as a woods guy, I can't help but appreciate just how fast these guys ride these vintage bikes in the woods. It was amazing. I meandered around the swap meet looking for killer deals on great bikes. I'll be honest with you, I didn't find any good deals. It seems like that the AMA Vintage Days has become a flea market with Macy's pricing. This particular Gorilla was $6,900. I did find one deal though. It was a great Honda lawnmower for $50. How cool is that? On my way to the main stage, where factory Yamaha superstar and the Grand Marshal of Vintage Motocross Days, Brock Glover, was preparing to do a question and answer session. Meanwhile, I stopped by the tent where Yamaha was celebrating their 50th anniversary of the Motocross YZ lineup. It was amazing to see those 1974 YZs and just how beautiful they really were.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to...
As Brock took the stage, I was simply blown away by the fact that he recognized me and introduced me as the current AMA national champion. I have no words for that. Just simply amazed that he would recognize a mortal like me.
National champion vintage. What's the actual title? There he is. National champion. There you go. There we go.
We were talking about the fact that if you're not signed by factory Yamaha by 8 years old, you're probably not going to make it. Hearing your story, and like others that are our age, you know, we would have been considered very late starters in the game by today's standard. Can you see the evolution of your to my era versus what's going on in today's AMA motocross and AMA supercross? And is that testimonial to the fact that it's these kids are starting at 4 years old and have factory contracts by the time they're that? I just like your take. It's not a trick question as to who's better, the 80s or 2024. We know who's better. You, okay? But I'm just...
I mean, there's no question that the skill level and the professionalism of the sport right now is at an all-time high. I mean, these kids, as you said, they start at such a young age. They can ride motorcycles better, easier and more smoothly than they can walk. So there's a point where I just feel like the skill level is at it's at a level that you can't imagine. These guys are all doing things on motorcycles that are phenomenal. Do I think that every rider has to start at age 3 or in the womb, and move away and be living full time and being quote unquote homeschooled? No, I don't.
So Brock answered all our questions in depth, much more than what you just saw on the film, and maybe that'll be a new piece someday. But in the meantime, why did we really come to Vintage Motorcycle Days? Motocross. In particular, AMA National Championship Motocross. So the day before, we were testing and tuning, and my mechanic and I, Butch Sondergraf, got to spend some wonderful quality alone time with Brock Glover. looking at his, what we called a Works CR125. It reminded me of the days back in the 80s and in my early pro days where I was just a lonely privateer dreaming of having a Works bike. Well, a couple of days ago was exactly the same scenario lived over again. Brock CR125 is out the roof on technology. Clunker could only wish, but Brock was very kind. He gave us nice descriptions of it. It was awesome. The other person I met was Gary Jones. Now, Gary Jones has been a long-time idol of mine, and Gary and I had this awesome conversation about our kids being raised in motocross and off-road, and what to really do when you get to that juncture in life where do they try and go pro or do they go to college? Gary and I had this awesome conversation where our sons are going to college and they're going to be able to afford to race for the rest of their lives. Seems like a really good idea, for me at least. Lastly, I roll up to the starting line in practice. Funniest thing ever happened. This guy pulls up beside me on a Bultaco. It's got Tom Benokin name on the graphics. And I look over at the guy thinking, this is just some guy that bought one of Tommy's old motorcycles, right? So I say, hey, is that Tommy Benokin's, one of Tommy's old bikes? He says, I am Tom Benokin. Tom Benokin, to me, is a super legend. He was somebody that I could relate to and just was amazed at his riding ability, particularly in the sand. I got to enjoy time with him in the Florida Winter Am back in the earliest of days, but then he went on to become a factory Kawasaki star, and I went to college. So anyway, with that said, Tom Benokin and I had a wonderful couple of lap battle on the track where we diced and volleyed back and forth, and unfortunately his Bultaco failed, and you could hear him saying in the pits that he blew up his motorcycle trying to chase Clunker, and that's like the best compliment in the whole world. So Tommy Benokin, love you, brother. You're my new best friend.
And there you have it. I want to thank Jerry Maddox for sending in all this wonderful footage. And also, if you haven't heard, I want to congratulate Jerry Maddox as well. Here he is holding up a ARMA National #1 plate. He rides that well-prepared Honda CR125 in the 0 to 200 class, okay? And his son Ryder, well, he's not too shabby either. There they are, holding up 3 #1 plates for all the time they spent on the road this year chasing those titles. Absolutely incredible. And what a nice way to spend the summer with your son racing some ARMA events. Right now, we're going to hear from Paul Parkinson Sr. at ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com, and then we're going to be right back with more Vintage Motocross Q&A. I got to start queuing up these videos a little bit sooner, but here we go. Oh, we're going to have the winner for – okay.
Hi, I'm Paul Parkinson with Replica Motorcycle Parts. I'm sitting here with our test bike, which is ridden by Jerry Maddox. It carries the #1 plate in the US. Let's go over a couple of the parts that we've got on here. We've got our ignition cover with the case saver built into it, so that when the chain comes off, you're not damaging your cases. Spacer, foot pegs. Jerry runs our air box. Seat brackets, keeps the seat on tight so he doesn't fall off when he's going over the whoops. And then on this side, Jerry runs a couple little things, a lot of little rubber parts on the bike and stuff are all done by us. And then down here we've got our brake pedal, which has got needle bearings in there, and then it's got a wider toe peg so it gives them a real nice, clean, easy to use brake. And then this is our latest part. This is a CR250 type knuckle. In fact, Honda used them on the last versions of the MR175s, and this is a real trick aluminum Kickstarter arm. So that gives them lightweight, strength, and reliability more than anything else. Reliability.
ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. I want to thank Paul Parkinson Sr. I have your shirt on tonight. I know the camera's a little low, but oh, look at that. That's a beautiful shirt. Who made that shirt?
I did.
Susie made that shirt for replicamotorcyclepark.com. And speaking of Susie, I think about right now she should have our the viewer appreciation winner. Who was the viewer appreciation winner?
It's Broward Sapp.
Broward Sapp?
Broward Sapp is the winner.
S-T-A-P-P?
S-A-P-P. Broward Sapp.
Broward Sapp. Broward Sapp, you are tonight's random viewer appreciation winner. Here's what you do. Go over to the International Motocross Museum website, pick out a poster. Then send me a message with your address. I will contact Terry Good, and we will get you the poster of your choice. Thank you for watching the show and for sharing it as well. And the gentleman's name was Sapp. First name, Broward Sapp. Our next, you know what I wanted to share with you too, guys? Just a brief something that we were talking about the Carlsbad Grand Prix. You know who never won the Carlsbad Grand Prix? I can't believe it. Roger DeCoster. All the years that Roger raced the U.S. champion, Roger never won. You know where Roger did win like 8, 10, 12 times? Every place else he ever raced. Roger DeCoster, not the luckiest guy at Carlsbad. This Week in Motocross History is brought to you by Racer X, available on your newsstand now, also available online. It was 1973, and this is a hard picture to find. But anyway, Edson Dye, still thriving Inter-Am Series, visited Ward Robinson's Unadilla Valley Sports Center, and the winner was future 5-time FIM Motocross World Champion Heikki Mikkola from Finland. Mikkola would go on to top Czech CZ rider Jaroslav Falta and the Dutchman Pierre Karsmakers, who rode for Yamaha and lived in America as an expat. He was considered the top American for his third-place finish. With the win, Mikkola wrapped up the title in the 5-race Inter-Am Series, with Karsmakers taking second place. It was 1983. Team Honda's David Bailey won the 250cc U.S. Grand Prix at Unadilla, topping defending FIM world champion Danny Laporte and Honda support rider Brian Myerscough, who nearly pulled off an incredible win, leading much of the race, but fell back a bit with only 2 laps to go. Bailey's win came at a tough time for Danny Laporte, who was locked in a battle with Belgium's George Jobet, the 1980 FIM 250cc world champion and future 500cc world champion. He had only won 1 GP out of 9 to that point and was losing his grip on the number 1 plate. It's another great story. People sometimes forget. We had a couple of world champions here in America, not only, of course, Brad Lackey and Danny Laporte, but we had Trampus Parker. And we had this gentleman too, Donnie Schmidt. July 29th, 1990 in Wohlen, Switzerland. U.S. rider Donnie Schmidt clinched the 1990 FIM 125cc World Motocross Championship with a 1-1 finish aboard his Suzuki. Schmidt, who raced in America as a privateer in 1989, decided he wanted to go to Europe just because he didn't want to race AMA races in America. Imagine that. You just don't want to race in America. You pack up, you go to Europe, and you win yourself a world championship. That's what's happening this week in, what's that segment called, Susie? This Week in Motocross History. ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. I want to thank Paul Parkinson Sr., and don't forget to support them any way you can. One of my favorite parts that they make is the replica of the 1973-74 Honda CR125 and 250 silencer. It is an exact replica. Paul really expanding his horizons there with the 3D printing. We've got a Kawasaki KX 450 countershaft sprocket cover like this available from Replica. Also, 125 KX Kawasaki chain guide. This thing was made of nylon, like a hard plastic, and they were long gone. But thanks to Paul Parkinson and ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com, we have them once again available to us. We are now going to, I think we're going to wrap it up. I'm going to give you the announcements, and then we're going to call it a night here at Vintage Motocross Q&A. By the way, if you want to become a show supporter, just $49.95. You will get your name on the board behind me, just like this, like all these wonderful guys have done, including Tom Miller, Karl Word, Jay Stoecker, and all the others. You get your name back there. You'll also get a T-shirt And at this point, you know what else? I'm going to start throwing in some stickers just like this for people who now become a show supporter. Okay? So we got that going on. If you want to get some racing in, now's the time. You got racing up in the Great Northwest. Got the Pomeroy event, Pomeroy Memorial Motocross Track. It's coming up August 10th and 11th, and that's in Somerview Road in Titan, Washington. If you are not up in the Great Northwest, maybe you're in Tennessee. I know this is one of Jerry Maddox's favorite tracks. Muddy Creek Raceway, August 9th, 10th, and 11th. That's coming up at Muddy Creek. And two of the hardest working people in vintage motocross. They put on races. They put on wonderful social gatherings. Debbie and Scott Burnworth have round 3 of the SoCal Vintage MX Classic coming up. First round was at Paris. The second was at Verona. We've got the series final coming up at Glen Helen Raceway, and that is on October 5th. That's October 5th, and that's coming up. Well, that wraps it up for this week at Vintage Motocross Q&A. I want to thank you for tuning in. I want to congratulate everybody who won something, including Tony Mosley and everybody else. The show really went on for almost an hour tonight, but we had that great footage. Thank you to Jerry Maddox. We've got more coming up from Jerry Maddox racing his bike out there, and so much more from the International Motocross Museum, all the things that are happening in the vintage motocross world. I will see if he's available. Gina! Thanks for watching the Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll see you next time. Don't forget, keep sharing the show. Gino, come on, fella. Come on, boy. Oh, there you go. We'll see you next time on Vintage Motocross Q&A. Susie, baby, thank you for helping me out again. All right? Here we go. End credits. Oh.